Back in the early 2000s, the Smackdown series was one of the most highly anticipated annual franchises in video games. Despite critical acclaim and almost universal praise from the fanbase, the Smackdown series always had a habit of showing things that weren't actually in the official releases. As a young teenager, I used to sit and daydream, what if the attires looked like they did in the previews for Smackdown 2? What if the moves in Smackdown Just Bring It looked like they did in the previews? What if the season mode in Smackdown Shut Your Mouth looked like it did in the previews? What if the characters were never removed in Smackdown Here Comes the Pain? What if I could move all of Smackdown Shut Your Mouth's characters into Here Comes the Pain?
So for the past 4 years, I've been adding, re-adding, and improving the first 5 original Smackdown games, the first 2 Smackdown vs. Raw games, and the Xbox and GameCube games, but we'll get to those later. I'm Scott J, welcome to Rebuilding Smackdown.
In the fall of 2002, Smackdown Shut Your Mouth was released to much critical acclaim and fan praise. The game, however, much like Just Bring It before it, was playing catch-up to a rapidly changing WWE. While yes, the game had incorporated some of the new elements in WWE's weekly TV, such as the roster split, the yearly draft, general managers, title designs, and even gimmick changes. In spite of this, even more major TV changes had occurred even before the game's release, such as different general managers, different championships, new gimmicks, and reunited tag teams, as well as new call-ups from WWE's developmental roster. This left the game once again feeling out of date, and not in a good way. The Smackdown series had a history of always covering the previous year of weekly television and pay-per-view events. Smackdown Shut Your Mouth, however, barely covered 6 months. This in large part is down to the botched invasion angle, the sudden decision to split the rosters, change sets, as well as modify and change many popular tag team stables and gimmicks. This led to fans and critics alike clamoring for new information on the next Smackdown game. They wouldn't have to wait long, however, as a THQ staffer had revealed, Smackdown 5 began development halfway through Smackdown Shut Your Mouth's development cycle.
So on April 5th, 2003, THQ officially announced that Smackdown 5 was in development. On April 22nd, 2003, Smackdown 5 had an official name. Its name, Smackdown Here Comes the Pain.
Following the name reveal, THQ put out a press release, which featured the first 3 screenshots of the game, touting many new features, including an exclusive story mode written by WWE creative writers, improved controls featuring a brand new submission system, new match types, as well as the promise of enhanced production values, superstar voiceovers, dynamic camera angles, and lighting, and of course, up until this point, a series trademark of improved animations. Now of course, all this was very, very exciting. This would be THQ and Yuke's 3rd attempt at a game on the PlayStation 2 hardware. Finally, the growing pains of moving from PlayStation 1 to PlayStation 2 would be gone, as well as the WWE settling down into more normal programming. So when would we get to see our first real look at Here Comes the Pain, and get the first real bit of information? Many thought it would be at that year's E3. That wasn't the case, however, as THQ and Yuke's decided that Smackdown Here Comes the Pain would skip E3 2003. The wait wouldn't be too much longer though, as THQ announced in the middle of July they would hold an event where the European press would get their first look at Here Comes the Pain.
During the event, the press were also treated to 2 exclusive trailers. One, a cinematic trailer featuring a brand new Shawn Michaels model facing off against an up-resed Triple H from Smackdown Shut Your Mouth, and a brand new Steve Austin model facing off against an edited Smackdown Shut Your Mouth Rock with the new buzz cut and tattoo. This trailer would later be released to the public with added footage. The second trailer was a gameplay trailer. In this trailer, while the HUD did look like Smackdown Here Comes the Pains, the gameplay was still very much Smackdown Shut Your Mouth. In fact, when you performed a finisher, it still had the manual matrix effect and replay effect, which I wanted to repurpose and put back in Smackdown Here Comes the Pain. Unfortunately, I found out it was completely unable to do so, purely because of the fact that they changed the system halfway through development. For some reason, they decided to add the matrix effect and the replay effect onto the camera cuts of the actual move animations. So it's no longer manual, there's nothing you can do about it. The only way to get rid of it is to turn camera cuts off completely, which sucks.
During the game's development, the game also underwent some unnecessary changes and removals.
No, I'm not talking about Hulk Hogan, The Ultimate Warrior, or Jeff Hardy, but I am talking about The Rock, Triple H, Charlie Haas, Shelton Benjamin, John Cena, and even The Undertaker. Let's take a look.
As we saw earlier, The Rock had a very different model at the start of development of Here Comes the Pain, just using his Smackdown Shut Your Mouth model with updated textures for the face, new tattoo, and new hairstyle. But that wasn't the only time they changed The Rock's model. What you see here is the second Rock model. This model was used in every build from August all the way till time of release. For some reason they changed it at the last minute. It's relatively the same model in terms of stature and build. However, the face is entirely different, much better sculpting, and actually higher resolution textures. I have no idea why they decided to change this model. The model in the preview build, or Rock 2 as I like to call it, is clearly superior to the one in final release. However, that was not the only thing for The Rock that was going to change in Here Comes the Pain. What you're seeing here is the first entrance of The Rock's from Here Comes the Pain. This entrance was accurately animated from the 7th of April edition of Monday Night Raw. This would be the second 2 days THQ and Ukes had gone down to a WWE event to get assets for WWE superstars to feature in Here Comes the Pain, the first time being the 9th of December 2002. Now, for some reason, they chopped this entrance up right before release. I'm not sure why exactly. Is it because The Rock had turned babyface right before the game came out? If that was the case, then why not include the Smackdown Shut Your Mouth entrance as an alternate entrance in the creator moveset, keeping this one intact? It was perfect. This was another case of THQ and or Ukes removing something unnecessarily that they'd already shown off, a trend that had started since Smackdown 2. I always saw these games as an archival of the previous year of television, so when they would update things at the last minute, I always preferred those updates to be optional, such as if an attire had changed at the last minute, I would like that attire to be on the second or third attire slot, rather than be pasted over the attire I had been shown in promo clips and pictures all year in lead up to the release of this game. But Rock was the only person to receive changes. Let's take a look at the Undertaker. Now, you're probably thinking this is exactly the same Undertaker you have on the retail Here Comes the Pain. You wouldn't be wrong for thinking that, but if you look closely at his leg, you'll see he has the Dead Man Inc. logo on his trousers. This Undertaker was in Here Comes the Pain all the way up until the press got review copies, when it was suddenly taken out. The texture actually still exists on the disc. However, it won't fit the model due to model changes. I actually have this model from a kiosk build that I've acquired, so I've put this back in the Definitive Edition. I'm still not sure why they removed it though. It looked fine. Did he stop having it, so they just decided to take it off? It is on both attires, mind you, so it just comes down to being just another unnecessary change. Speaking of unnecessary changes, let's talk about Team Angle. Charlie Haas, Shelton Benjamin, and yes, even Kurt Angle. When the press got their first look at season mode, Kurt Angle was seen walking around backstage in his Team Angle tracksuit. When the press were finally given preview builds, Shelton Benjamin and Charlie Haas both had their Team Angle singlets, as well as backstage attires in their Team Angle tracksuits. The Team Angle singlets, for some reason, were deleted when they became the world's greatest tag team, and pasted over them were the world's greatest tag team attires. And strangely enough, Kurt Angle retained his Team Angle attire as Outfit 1, yet the Team Angle tracksuits for all three were locked on the disc. I have obviously unlocked all of those, so those work backstage and in exhibition and in season if you want to select them. However, I've also put back in Charlie Haas and Shelton Benjamin's Team Angle singlets, and they are attire 1, with attire 3 being the world's greatest tag team attire. I always thought this is how it should have been on their actual retail release. Why delete an attire for no reason at all, especially when they had been Team Angle since their inception in the company? It's another case of something unnecessarily being changed or removed. So as we saw earlier on, just like The Rock, Triple H had a very different model at the start of development, one matching his Smackdown Shut Your Mouth model, but with tweaked textures and more detail to his facial hair. However, this would not be Triple H's only model during development. He actually had a second model, which was much bigger, still with dark hair and still with facial hair. This was shown in all builds up until about August, when it changed to the model that we ended up having, which I think is just a terrible Triple H model, especially when you go back and compare not just the Smackdown Shut Your Mouth model, but the model that is in preview builds as well. this Triple H is so much better, and again, just like The Rock, far superior than what was released on the disc. I can't believe they actually chose to change it. Part of me wonders, is it too high a poly model, or is the file size of the model too big? When that happens, as someone that's been modifying Here Comes the Pain, you do have a tendency that if the model goes over a certain file size, it might work fine in singles matches, but multi-man matches, all the characters will disappear. So that could be the case, but there are workarounds, as I have found them myself, so I'm surprised that that they weren't able to, actually. So who knows, it could be a case of they were staring at this game for so long, because it was in development for so much longer than a normal Smackdown game, that any minimal changes they made to certain models ended up looking better because they had fresh eyes with that model, rather than it actually being better. It was just new. A shame nonetheless. Moving on to John Cena. Now John Cena, I don't have any footage on the hard drive I'm looking through right now, but I'm pretty sure I have footage of this somewhere. He was originally wearing, I think, a Mets jersey instead of the sort of plain default one he's wearing now. But obviously that's not really an unnecessary change. That's more they could not acquire the rights for that jersey. I mean, I'm sure there's all kinds of legal disputes with that. So that was the only reason for that not making that. Yeah, I'm sure. And there's a few other little things, such as attire placement, which always bugs me. In rebuilding Smackdown Shut Your Mouth, I'll actually go into attire placement in depth, and how it can actually mess up the feel of a game in terms of story mode and things of that nature. But these are basically just some of the things that were well known, that were, I suppose, removed or changed right before release. There are some other less known things, or I suppose not known at all unless you really looked at these discs or worked in the industry. But these things I will show at a later date in another version. Following this, the game continued to garner attention from all major media outlets, some in particular going so far as to update almost every day, if not every day, on SmackDown Here Comes the Pain. Now I have to stress how big a deal this actually was. In 2003, the PlayStation 2 was home to some of the best games ever created. 2003 in particular was an extremely strong year for the platform, if not games in general. Yet Here Comes the Pain stood shoulder to shoulder with almost everything else that was released. And then finally, on October 27th, 2003, SmackDown Here Comes the Pain was finally released. And unfortunately, as you've probably guessed by watching this video, none of the things I mentioned were in the final release. Instead, they were either changed, replaced, or just completely removed.
Now this was something that always never sat well with me. As a young teenager that followed the Smackdown series extremely closely, and even when I started to work industry events like at Earls Court Arena in 2003, I hated seeing things that looked better, whether it be in previews, magazines, preview pictures, and even kiosk builds that I played, to then getting my hands on the final release, and then maybe things, models being changed, models looking different, attires being changed but not leaving the previous attire as an alternate, instead just removing it entirely, and then sometimes moves being entirely reanimated, looking totally worse. As you'll see through this series, with SmackDown Shut Your Mouth, and especially SmackDown Just Bring It, and to some extent SmackDown 1 and 2, although those games were a lot better about leaving stuff in the create parts, you'll see that so much of what was removed or taken out would have actually just been a lot better left in, or left in the same place that they were originally in. And which led me to this. It led me to doing this. I used to always wonder as a kid, oh god, could I have at least most of that stuff back from Here Comes the Pain and put it back into Here Comes the Pain? Then I started to wonder, The Rock has only been on TV in 2003 for a few months. So I would also love to have, considering we have some of the year prior's arenas, I'd also love to have maybe the roster of SmackDown Shut Your Mouth in Here Comes the Pain. Like people like, Billy Gunn, maybe The Rock, The Rock with hair, William Regal, so on and so forth, the Hardys. And that's what led me to doing this. Yes, it took, it must be almost 20 years now, but to finally have stuff like this, and to have a roster which is, it's pretty much everybody from SmackDown Shut Your Mouth in Here Comes the Pain, and then even more things like, hey, now you can have whatever set of titles you want, and then hey, remember how The Rock looked in the preview pictures? You've got that. Remember how The Undertaker was in the preview pictures? You got that. Brock Lesnar, you got that. Team Angle, you got that. And you keep the world's greatest tag team. Tons of extra attires. Triple H, brought back from the kiosk build. It's not the first model, but it is the second one, and that is still better than what shipped on the retail release. Even the little things, like the Smackdown finisher icon. While I get that was only in there as a placeholder, I still think it was a really cool thing to leave in and put in just for this build, because, when else are you going to get that? And then when you look at my later episodes of this series, which will be Smackdown Shut Your Mouth, Smackdown Just Bring It, you'll really start to see things like move changes and removed moves put back in that were either left on press preview builds and then they just got rid of them, or shown off by people like GameSpot or IGN or PSW Magazine or PSM2 Magazine, and putting all that stuff back in and seeing it feel like much more of a completed package than what you got at release.
Alright, let's check out what I've done so far. So, to those that are new to the Definitive Edition and haven't played it before, the first thing you'll notice is that every single wrestler from Smackdown Shut Your Mouth, bar Shawn Stasiak, is included. Secondly, the next thing you'll notice is that everything I spoke about that was removed from Smackdown Here Comes the Pain, minus Jeff Hardy, Hulk Hogan, and the Ultimate Warriors models, are included in this version of Here Comes the Pain. So, a Hollywood Rock that looks just like the Smackdown Shut Your Mouth model, similar to Trailer 1, Triple H 2 from the kiosk build that I acquired, The Undertaker with the Dead Man Inc. logo on his trousers, Charlie Haas and Shelton Benjamin have their Team Angle singlets, all three members of Team Angle have their Team Angle tracksuits, and Haas and Benjamin still keep their World's Greatest Tag Team attires as Attire 3, as well as a few extra attires that were on preview builds prior to release. For a full list of all wrestlers and attires, please check out my roster video. Exhibition and Season have even more replayability now, with 72 playable wrestlers as well as 160 attires. The reason I said 72 playable characters, because if you played a previous version of the Definitive Edition, you'll know that you needed Creator Divas to get Season to start. However, now when you start Season, you'll no longer have that issue. Why? Well, as you know previously, I removed all the divas on the disc bar Trish Stratus and Stephanie McMahon, so I could greatly increase the size of the male roster. The good news now is, you no longer need Creator Divas to get Season to work, as I've unlocked all the non-playable character slots in Season and replaced them with most of the official divas from Here Comes the Pain. What this means is now any storyline, cutscene, or backstage encounter that requires a diva will now use any official diva that is on the roster. So instead of just Stephanie and Trish, you will now have a whole host of divas to choose from. The only drawback to this is that it's only for Season mode. In Exhibition, you'll still only have access to Stephanie McMahon and Trish Stratus for divas. Apart from that minor gripe, Exhibition and Season mode are absolutely incredible now, having access to a huge roster and plethora of tag teams and stables. All wrestlers and divas have their correct stats and attributes for Season mode, as well as Exhibition. Speaking of Season mode, let's talk about titles. When downloading this, you're going to get an option of 2 title packs, the WWF pack or the WWE pack. We'll start with the WWE pack. In this pack, all titles are the default titles from Here Comes the Pain, bar 2. The first being the WWE title. In that, the WWE title's flat, horrible texture that has been used since Smackdown Shut Your Mouth all the way till Smackdown vs. Raw 2011 has been changed. If you played Smackdown Shut Your Mouth and paid attention to the credits, you'll notice that they had an Undisputed Championship with two-tone gold. This was never used in the final release and was only in select preview builds and then scrapped for some reason. No idea why. However, I have it, so I've put it back in. Not only in Smackdown Shut Your Mouth, but also in this. It looks so much better and far closer to the real thing. The second title that's been replaced is the World title. The World title has been replaced with the WCW World title from Smackdown Shut Your Mouth. Now, you're probably wondering why, because in Smackdown Shut Your Mouth, when they previewed the WWF title and WCW title in the first trailer, you'll notice that it had an extra side plate from the WWF title. This is also on here. Reason being, during the early press trailers, Triple H was seen holding this title along with a brand new title entrance for Triple H. And also, remember, this series is not just about adding, it's about re-adding things that were in before. If not here, even though aesthetically wrong, but cool in its own right, then where else? I really like having these types of extras in these games. But that's all for the WWE pack. Let's move on to the WWF pack. In the WWF pack, the WWE title has been replaced with the WWF Big Eagle title from Smackdown Shut Your Mouth. This was shown in Smackdown Shut Your Mouth's first trailer. The WWE United States title has been replaced with the WWF European title from Smackdown Shut Your Mouth. The World Tag Team titles have been replaced with the WWF Tag Team titles from Smackdown Shut Your Mouth. The WWE Cruiserweight title is replaced with the WWF Light Heavyweight title from Smackdown Shut Your Mouth. This title was never in the final release. Okay, that's it for the WWF pack. But I'm also thinking on making a third title pack. This one won't come out anytime soon, but it will be based around the WWF, WCW, ECW invasion angle. If you're old like me and you remember the angle as it was happening, then you'll remember that the original plan was yes to have a draft, but Monday Night Raw was going to go away and WCW Monday Nitro was going to take its place. A few WWF stars would have gone over, but leaving the WCW titles intact on Raw. I'm not going to do this exactly though. Instead, all the WCW titles will be on SmackDown. So for example, the WCW title from Smackdown Shut Your Mouth will replace the WWE title on Here Comes the Pain. The WCW US title from Smackdown Shut Your Mouth will replace the WWE version on Here Comes the Pain. The WCW tag titles will replace the WWE SmackDown tag titles on Here Comes the Pain. And lastly, the WCW Cruiserweight title from Smackdown Shut Your Mouth will replace the WWE Cruiserweight title on Here Comes the Pain. If this idea is popular and you guys do want this, please let me know in the comments down below. This has been something on my agenda list for a while. It will get done. I just thought I'd see how much interest there was in it. Anyway, enough about titles now. Let's move on. Okay, let's have a quick chat about entrance and win animations. As far as entrance animations go, Hulk Hogan, Legend Hulk Hogan, and Ultimate Warrior's entrance animations are now selectable. I'm still looking through the entrance animation data on my kiosk build to hopefully find The Rock's entrance animation data, and hopefully it's not chopped up, so you'll have the proper Hollywood Rock entrance. As far as win animations go, every single win animation that was meant to be in Here Comes the Pain is in there. So Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, Jeff Hardy, Billy Gunn, Bradshaw, William Regal, and others. You've got tons to choose from. Moving on to music, every single star that is added in the game does have their correct theme song, but superstars that were already on Here Comes the Pain which did not feature their correct songs have been updated, such as Kane having Slow Chemical, Rob Van Dam having his correct one-of-a-kind theme, etc, etc. On top of that, some superstars feature multiple themes. So, for example, The Rock has his late 2001 theme, which he had all the way up until his first SmackDown of 2003. Stone Cold Steve Austin has 3 themes, so Disturbed, The Glass Shatters, and the Alliance theme. This features a whole host of extra themes for superstars, tag teams, and stables. Now, with all this cool stuff added in, it's sometimes easy to forget the little things. And by little things, I mean things like this. Early on, SmackDown Here Comes the Pain's finisher icon was very different. Yes, it was just a placeholder, but this series is about re-adding and getting something cool which you probably would never have got otherwise. So I've actually changed the finisher icon back to the old placeholder finisher icon. It's a little touch, I know, and some of you may not like it, but I think it's really cool to have, and, you know, the default finisher icon isn't going anywhere. I just think you've got something like this, and when else are you going to get it? So I really like it. I hope you guys do too. And with that, I think that's everything that's new in version 10. So as far as the release date goes for this, the PAL version is done, and the NTSC version is in very late bug testing now. Should be any day now that's finished. The only thing I'm waiting on is a Patreon of mine asked for a Japanese Exciting Pro Wrestling 5 version of this patch. When Exciting Pro Wrestling 5 was released, it was about 3 months after the European and North American release of Here Comes the Pain. So it's actually a revised version slightly. So it requires a bit more bug testing, but that should be up soon for those that want that too. So when those are out, we'll be moving on to Smackdown Shut Your Mouth, Just Bring It, and Know Your Role. I really can't wait to show you guys what I've actually done to those games, because in some cases it's actually far greater due to what was shown and what didn't actually come out. For what it's worth, guys, I mean, the reason I made this video series is because even though it's taken 4 years of my life doing this to these games, and obviously at the moment you've only seen Here Comes the Pain, you haven't seen what I've done to, Shut Your Mouth, Just Bring It, Know Your Role, and the first Smackdown, as well as other games. But this was my dream, this was one of the things I thought would never be possible. And even though I have had like 20,000 downloads or more, probably more at this point, of just the Here Comes the Pain patch, I felt like it needed to reach a wider audience than the PS2 forums that I was posting on, because I sort of thought, well, unlike, I guess, fan mods that are, bits and pieces of current era and all current era superstars and all kinds of nonsense, this is sort of a real, I genuinely believe my stuff is the definitive stuff for each era that I am doing, an era of that game. I don't try and put things in that look like they are, I suppose, fan made. I want everything to look like, it was made by Ukes, or was made by Ukes, and get it as close as possible to the real thing. And I just thought, oh gosh, these wrestling forums that I'm on, cool, and I'm getting a little traction. I have for years now, but wrestling was huge when these games came out. I mean, every time these games came out, especially the first 5 Smackdown games, they were number 1 in the charts in most territories they hit. And if they weren't number 1, they missed out on a hair's breadth. So I just thought there must be more people that want this stuff. So I made this series in the hope that, it reaches more people. So I hope if you're watching this, of course, if you're watching this and you already support me and you already download this and you've liked what I've been doing for the past 4 years, then great. I appreciate that, and I hope you've taken enjoyment out of this video. But, this is also to reach new people and hopefully to be like, oh, this is, they feel the same that I did, but, obviously they're like, gosh, this is now playable, this is possible. Right. That is everything that is available in version 10. Obviously, I'm going to go deeper into the roster video, which is, if you're watching this later, it's probably uploaded right now. If you're watching this as it's uploaded, it'll probably be up in a couple of hours. But yeah, so that's everything in version 10. Now let's take a look at some future plans.
Yes, I know that's a lot for Here Comes the Pain, but there's still so much more I want to do and add into this patch. Yes, I know there's over 150 attires already. We have everyone from Smackdown, Shut Your Mouth, and Here Comes the Pain. We have removed models, removed attires. We have music, Titantrons, arenas, the old finisher icon. Everything's there, but there's still more I want to do. I want to add in removed entrances and removed title entrances. There were title entrances, not many, but The Rock and Triple H both had title entrances. Triple H had a brand new one that is similar to what people thought was in Smackdown Shut Your Mouth. More on that next episode. I'd love to get an older build with Hulk Hogan, Mr. America, Legend Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, and then even an earlier build with Jeff Hardy, and see where that can go. I would love to really put everything and every bit of effort I have into making sure this is literally the definitive edition of Here Comes the Pain. And with that, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, share, and subscribe for more Rebuilding Smackdown. If you have any questions regarding Here Comes the Pain, please leave a comment down below or hit me up on Twitter. I'll be doing a question and answers video regarding Here Comes the Pain soon after this. I'm also dropping a roster video which will showcase every single character and every single attire in this version of the patch. If you can, please support me on Patreon at patreon.com/ScottJ. I just lost a parent, so I'd really appreciate the help. Many thanks, guys. Take care.